spirituality,
Right.
manual labor, like that kind of stuff. And so my group is creativity, obviously.
Okay.
And so we we're talking about how creativity can not only be found in the arts but also in work,
Yeah.
leisure, and
Everywhere.
all that kind of all that kind of stuff.
Everywhere.
So we have to conduct interviews since it's a research paper,
Good.
and we sent out those like intro questions to
Right.
a bunch of different professors, picked the ones that we liked the best, and are having
Well,
face-to-face interviews. So we asked you for a definition
Right.
of creativity, and can you elaborate on that?
I don't even remember what I said.
Well.
I mean, I was answering the email. I honestly can't. Except it was probably something about creating something from nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, I like to keep it really broad because creativity, in my opinion, applies to every aspect of daily life. Certainly not just to artists and musicians and dancers and so creating something from nothing. My wife made brownies yesterday. I mean, to me, that's creative. It's starting with these individual kinds of things and making something greater out of them.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't even have to be a physical thing for me. It can be a mental thing. You know, solving a problem can be creative. Raising children is creative. I mean, everything to me is creative. So, creating something out of nothing, whether it be an answer or whether it be a house or whether it be a textbook or a musical performance. That's the way I see it.
In the final question on our thing, you talked about how creativity was a process and therefore can be taught.
I think
What
so.
do you mean by a process?
Well, there are steps that people take to be creative, whether they know it or not. Now, a lot of our stuff is innate. I think we are innately creative creatures. If you watch a child grow, they will innately solve problems. They will learn to talk to get what they need. They cry whenever they need something until they learn to talk, but they will learn to talk to get what they need. That's a creative process in my mind. It's solving problems. So there's a process to which one approaches being creative. In other words, the first thing is to identify your problem. The second thing is to take steps to address the problem. So let's take, for instance, writing a piece of music, which is what I do, right? So the first step you have to do, the first step in writing a piece of music is to determine for what performing forces will this piece be written, whether it's for band, whether it's for orchestra, whether it's for vocalist and piano, whether it's for string quartet. See, that's already a process. That's the first step in the creative process, is making that decision. Now, not everybody follows the same steps all the time. I mean, after that, what's step two? Well, it might be, how difficult a piece is this going to be? How good are your performers? So you start getting in your mind what your limitations are in terms of what you're going to write. You start setting your boundaries. And then it's like, okay, what time frame am I writing in? Is this a 2-minute piece? Is this an 8-minute piece? Is this a 20-minute piece? You start setting boundaries. And within those boundaries, I start thinking about creative ways to compose this work within those boundaries. So to me, it's a process.
That makes sense.
Yeah, when I do composer type interviews or appearances, oftentimes I take questions and the students will say, "How did you come up with the idea for this piece?" Which is essentially the creative process, right? How do you come up with ideas for a piece? And I always answer them with, let's do a little exercise. I want you all to, if I were to ask you all to write me a story, you're going to write down a story. What would you write about? And then I ask them, and one of them say, well, I would write about my dog, or I would write about pizza, or I would write about, it doesn't matter what their answer is. And I say, where did you get that idea? What made you think that you would write a story about your dog? And they don't know. I mean, they say it just came to me. Okay, well, that's where my musical ideas come from. When I sit to compose and I've got my parameters, I just have a musical idea, and I don't know where that initial musical idea comes from. I have no idea where it comes from. It is, people call it inspiration. I mean, some call it creativity. great composer Paul Hindemith called it Einfallen in German, which means that which falls down from somewhere. It's a great name for it because I have no idea. I have no idea where the initial idea comes from. Sometimes I'll just play sounds at a keyboard until I have a sound that I like, and then I'll start from there, and the piece generates from that. So I think there is a process that you can teach. It's more about, to me, it's more about practicing the process than it is about the end result of the process.
Yeah. If it's something that is taught, I also think that it's something that is innate in you. Everybody has creativity.
I think to a certain level,
yeah,
everybody has some
sort of creativity.
We couldn't survive if you didn't.
It's just a matter of like finding the means to express it.
Right.
So where do you think imagination and like spontaneity come into a creative process?
I don't think they're separable. I mean, imagination is a creative process. Mm-hmm. Imagining is a creative process. Being spontaneous is a creative process. So I can't really distinguish. I haven't really thought about the distinction between the two.
Mm-hmm.
I think I mentioned in my email I'm taking a jazz improv class this semester, and I'm finding the two words that you just brought up, imagination and spontaneity, are absolutely critical in terms of being able to improvise on the spot. Because improvising is not about it's a process. Mm-hmm. There are steps that you take to be able to do it in the moment. But when you're in the moment, it's not about regurgitating those things that you've practiced. It's about responding to the moment in an imaginative way. Mm-hmm. And so those two words really moved my mind toward that. But again, it's an extremely creative thing to be able to, in the moment, make up a musical line that works with everything else that's going around you. Works from a musical standpoint with everything else that's going on around you is an extremely creative process and spontaneous. Spontaneous.
So you also talked about how, being a composer and a grandfather and all that stuff mm-hmm. has shown your creativity. Mm-hmm. How do you think that has affected you as a person?
Oh, my life is immeasurably enhanced by the creative aspects that I've been involved in. Immeasurably. I can't imagine. Well, I'll give you another example. I'm also a woodworker. So to me, it's another creative outlet that's not music. It's more, mm-hmm. It's more tactile. When you finish something, it's there. When I finish a musical piece, it's never there. Remember that. The music is never there until somebody else plays it. Mm-hmm. And then it's only there while they're playing it. Now, it exists on a score. I mean, this looks like music, but that's not music. That is a representation that when it is reproduced becomes music. And so when I've written a piece, it really doesn't exist until it's performed, and it only exists when it's being performed. Now, it exists in my imagination. I can hear it. I can make up a performance of it in my mind, but it never really exists. So woodworking to me is a more tactile thing. If I make a picture frame, it's there. I can see it. I can feel it. Mm-hmm. I know the process is finished. My daughter moved into a new house last year, and for this last year, we totally gutted this house and remodeled it. And I did all the kitchen cabinetry for her from nothing. We started with this is the space for the kitchen. This is where the refrigerator is going to be. This is where the dishwasher is going to be. This is where the sink is going to be. And designed all of her cabinets, built all the plans, made all the kitchen cabinets, and installed them. So that's, to me, an extremely creative process. Mm-hmm. So I can't imagine my life without a big dose of creativity in it.
Great.
I mean, I can't imagine anybody's life without a big dose of creativity in it. I mean, I'm not sure you could. Like I said in my email, I don't think you can live without being a creative individual. You just, I don't know if you actually could. I mean, you have to be creative sometimes to find what you're going to eat. You don't eat, you die. So, I don't think anybody could be essentially lack all creativity in their life. I don't think it's possible. Certainly more people have it than others. People that sit at home all night and watch TV are not being particularly creative in their minds. But To read a book and understand it, you have to create you have to create in your imagination what you're reading in this book. That's a creative activity. The process of writing the book is one creative activity. The process of reading it and recreating it in your mind is another creative activity. So it's everywhere.
That's great. Just to wrap things up, if you were to give advice to a student struggling to be creative, what would you tell them?
Wow. I'm not sure. I think the first thing I would do is assure them that they are a creative individual. Usually students who are having trouble with it don't believe that they are. They don't recognize their innate creativity. And they don't recognize in their daily life how they're being creative. So to help them get in tune with the creative processes they're already involved in and encourage them to build on those would be, one way to start. Everybody says think outside the box, find creative solutions for this or that. But I mean, those are pretty much cliche, but it does work. Those exercises do work. You've got to get, you pick up 6 things in your office and hand them to them and say, make something out of this. And they'll look at you like, what? Well, first decision, decide what you're going to try to make. How do the parts fit together? What can do what? Make something. I think there are exercises that you could do, but generally I think it's just a matter of being in touch with the fact that we're all creative and expanding on those creative things that we do.
Yeah.
Go to your cabinet, go to your refrigerator, pull out 7, 8 different things that you have in there and try to make something. Out of your refrigerator. Don't use a recipe. Just go in and pull some things out. That's a creative thing to me. Very practical thing to me.
Definitely.
You guys are going to put together a research paper. You better be creative. It's going to be like everybody else's.
Yeah.
You don't want it to be like that.
Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
This is exactly what we needed.
You're welcome.